Kate stood at the checkout counter of a trendy boutique, clutching a silky red dress. Her heart was pounding, and not just because of the price tag. The consultant, a tall brunette with deep brown eyes, handed her a branded bag. His fingers lingered on her palm longer than necessary. "This dress was made for you," he said in a low voice, smiling in a way that made Kate feel a rush of warmth in her chest. "You'll look stunning in it." His gaze was magnetic, and she couldn't look away. Outside the boutique's large window, in the parking lot, her boyfriend Max sat in the car. Kate could see him scrolling through his phone, leaning toward the screen. They had come here together, but he stayed behind, saying, "I don't want to wander around the store, you'll be quick." That was 15 minutes ago. She should have already left, gotten into the car, and joked about how long it took her to choose. But something held her back. "Maybe you'd like to look at something else?" Artem, as the consultant was called, his badge gleamed under the store's lights, leaned closer, ostensibly adjusting a stack of scarves on the counter. His tone was casual, but his eyes betrayed another intention. Kate felt her cheeks flush. She knew this was wrong. Max was waiting. He trusted her. They had been together for 3 years, and he had never given her reason to doubt him. But here, in this brightly lit boutique, with Artem looking at her as if she were the only person in the world, Kate felt different. Alive. Desired. She glanced at her watch. 6:47 p.m. Max was probably getting impatient. She needed to go. But Artem picked up a silver bracelet from the shelf and, smiling, suggested, "Try this, it'll go perfectly with the dress." His fingers lightly brushed her wrist as he fastened the bracelet. Kate held her breath. It was just a touch, but it coursed through her like an electric shock. She knew this was flirting. She knew it was dangerous. But instead of taking the bag and leaving, she nodded. "Okay, let's see," she said, her voice quieter than she expected. The store buzzed around her, customers chatted, cash registers beeped, music played in the background. But for Kate, the world narrowed to this moment. Artem led her to another display, talking about a new collection. She barely listened. Her thoughts swarmed like a hive of bees. It doesn't mean anything, she told herself. Just flirting. Just a game. But why did her phone, tucked in her bag, feel so heavy? Why hadn't she texted Max to say she was delayed? She glanced at the parking lot. Max's car was there, a gray sedan parked by a streetlight. She imagined him sitting, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel, maybe already texting her. She needed to go. Now. But Artem stopped by a jewelry stand and, leaning closer, said, "You know, I rarely see customers who catch the eye like you do." His words were like a spark, and Kate felt her self-control melting. She didn't leave. She didn't take the bag and head for the exit. Instead, she smiled, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and said, "Really? And what's so special about me?" Her voice was playful, almost foreign to her. She knew she was stepping onto thin ice. But at that moment, she didn't care. Max was waiting in the car, but Kate stayed in the store, where it all was just beginning. Kate stood by the jewelry display, feeling her heart beat faster. Artem, the consultant, was too attentive. He wasn't just offering products, his compliments, light touches, and gazes were something more. "These earrings will highlight your eyes," he said, holding a pair of silver teardrops. His fingers grazed her ear as he showed how they'd look. Kate felt goosebumps run down her spine. This wasn't just a sale. This was flirting, and she knew it. Her thoughts split. One part screamed, "Go to Max. He's waiting in the car, he trusts you." She and Max had been together for 3 years, and he was as steady as a rock. But another part, quieter and more dangerous, whispered, "It doesn't mean anything. Just fun. When will you feel like this again?" Artem talked about the new collection, but his words were mere background noise. His eyes, dark and piercing, held her in place. Kate noticed how he smiled, not the way you smile at customers, but as if they shared a secret. She glanced at her phone. 6:55 p.m. Max had been waiting for almost half an hour. She pictured him in the car, probably frowning, checking the time. She needed to text him, apologize, say she was delayed by a line. But instead, she tucked her phone deeper into her bag. Her cheeks burned, and she knew it wasn't from the store's warmth. Artem picked up another piece from the display, a thin chain with a small pendant. Try this, he said, I'll help. He stepped behind her, and Kate felt his breath on her neck as he fastened the chain. Her pulse raced. I should probably go, she said, but her voice was weak, almost unconvincing. Artem smiled, as if he knew she wouldn't leave. Just a moment, he replied. You don't want to miss something special. His words carried a double meaning, and Kate felt her self-control weaken. She remembered Max, his calm smile, how he always opened doors for her, how he planned their future. But here, in this moment, Max seemed distant, almost unreal. Kate decided to stay a bit longer. It's not cheating, she told herself. I'm just looking at jewelry. Just talking. She sent Max a quick text, 5 more minutes, picking out a gift. It was a lie, and she knew it. She wasn't picking out a gift. She was standing in the boutique, letting Artem flirt with her, and she was flirting back. All right, show me something else, she said, her voice light and playful. Artem led her to another part of the store, where there were fewer people. She followed him, feeling adrenaline pulse through her veins. The store was full of customers, but for Kate, it vanished. It was just her, Artem, and this dangerous game she'd stumbled into. She knew she could stop. She could take the dress, thank him, and go to the car. But something, curiosity, desire, the need to feel alive, kept her there. Artem stopped by a scarf display and, taking one, lightly ran it across her arm. This color suits you, he said, his voice low, almost intimate. Kate smiled, though she felt guilt tighten in her chest. She knew this was wrong. But at that moment, she didn't care. She wanted to play this game a little longer, to feel desired, before returning to reality. Max was waiting in the car, but Kate stayed in the store, where it all was just beginning. Kate stood by the scarf display, holding the silky fabric Artem had just handed her. She wanted to go to Max, to say, thank you, to Artem and return to the car. Her boyfriend had been waiting for almost 40 minutes, and she felt guilt constricting her chest. But Artem was too close. His gaze was magnetic, and when he suggested trying on earrings, his fingers lightly brushed her neck. The touch was like a spark that coursed through her entire body. Her breath grew shallow, and she felt her control slipping. We have something special over there, Artem said, pointing to a far corner of the store. New collections that haven't been displayed yet. His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed another intention. Kate knew it was a trap. Not literally, but emotionally. She could refuse, say she was in a hurry, and leave. But she didn't refuse. Her legs carried her after Artem, as if she were a marionette and he held the strings. They walked through the store, passing customers and displays. Kate felt her phone vibrate in her bag, probably Max. She didn't check. She couldn't. Her thoughts were consumed by Artem, his confident stride, the way he glanced at her over his shoulder, as if checking if she was following. In the far corner, it was quieter, with fewer people. A jewelry display gleamed under soft lighting, but Kate barely noticed it. Artem picked up a pair of earrings, long, with green gemstones, and held them to her face. Try these, he said, his voice almost a whisper. She raised her hand to take them, but he stopped her. Let me, he said, stepping closer and carefully inserting an earring into her ear. His fingers brushed her skin, and Kate felt her heart skip a beat. She knew this was no longer just flirting. It was something more, something dangerous. Her thoughts buzzed, stop. Go back to Max. You're making a mistake. But her body didn't listen. She stood there, letting Artem put on the second earring, feeling his breath warm her cheek. What do you think? He asked, stepping back but keeping his eyes locked on her face. Kate glanced at the small mirror on the counter. The earrings were beautiful, but she couldn't focus on them. Her gaze met Artem's in the mirror, and she felt her self-control crack. Nice, she said, her voice hoarse. She wanted to add something to steer the conversation back to safety, but the words stuck in her throat. Artem smiled, as if he knew she wouldn't leave. You know, he said, leaning closer, you're not like other customers. You have a spark. His words were like honey, sweet and sticky, and Kate felt her cheeks burn. She knew he probably said this to dozens of women. But at that moment, she didn't care. She wanted to believe she was special, that this moment was just for her. So she didn't leave. She stayed, letting Artem lead her further into this game. She felt her phone vibrate again but ignored it. Max seemed distant, like a character from another life. Here, in this corner of the store, it was just her, Artem, and the tension growing with every second. She knew she was stepping into dangerous territory, but adrenaline was stronger than fear. She wanted to see where this would lead. Kate stood in the quiet corner of the boutique, where Artem was showing her a new collection. His attention was magnetic. He talked about jewelry, but his words were just an excuse to stay close. "This bracelet," he said, picking up a thin silver chain, "looks like it was made for your wrist." He fastened it, his fingers lingering on her skin. Kate felt her pulse quicken. These weren't just a salesman's words. This was seduction, and she knew it. Artem started talking about himself. He'd traveled Europe, loved jazz, and was working at the boutique temporarily until he found something more serious. His voice was calm, but every word felt like he was sharing a secret with her. Kate caught herself listening too closely. She noticed small details, the faint scent of his cologne, the dark bracelet on his wrist, the way he adjusted his shirt cuffs. These details made him real, alive, and it scared her. Her thoughts split. One part screamed, "You're betraying Max. He's in the car, waiting for you." She remembered how he made her coffee that morning, how he laughed at her jokes. But another part, louder, whispered, "It doesn't mean anything. Just a conversation. You deserve a little attention." Artem was unlike Max. He was mysterious, bold, and his attention made Kate feel desired in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. She glanced at her watch. 7:10 p.m. Max had been waiting for almost an hour. Her phone was probably blowing up with messages, but she didn't check. She was afraid to see his name on the screen, afraid it would pull her back to reality. Artem noticed her glance and smiled. "No rush," he said. "Moments like this don't happen every day." His words were a challenge, and Kate felt her self-control weaken. She caught herself fixing her hair, smiling, flirting back. It was wrong, but she liked it. Kate decided to stay a little longer. She told herself she'd just look at one more piece of jewelry, that it wouldn't hurt. But deep down, she knew it was a lie. Artem suggested she leave her number for discounts on new collections. Kate hesitated for only a second. "Okay," she said, her voice quiet, almost guilty. She recited her number, watching as Artem typed it into his phone. His fingers moved quickly across the screen, and he smiled, as if he'd won a game. She knew it wasn't about discounts. It was a step over the line, and she'd taken it. Her bag with the dress sat at her feet, but Kate wasn't in a hurry to pick it up. Artem led her to another display, talking about a necklace that would suit her style perfectly. She listened, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She imagined Artem texting her, her replying. The thought scared and thrilled her at the same time. The store buzzed around her, but for Kate, it vanished. It was just her, Artem, and the tension growing every minute. She knew she could stop. She could say, "Thank you," and go to Max. But she didn't. She stayed, letting Artem lead her further into this dangerous game. Her phone vibrated again, but she ignored it. She wanted to linger in this moment a little longer before reality caught up with her. Kate stood by the display, holding the necklace Artem had just shown her. Her phone buzzed in her bag, and she flinched. It was Max, she knew. He'd been waiting in the car for almost an hour, and his patience was probably wearing thin. She wanted to check the message, text that she was coming, but Artem was too close. His presence was magnetic, and she couldn't make herself pull away. "I should probably go," she said, but her voice was weak, almost unconvincing. Artem smiled, as if he knew she wouldn't leave. "There's one more thing I want to show you," he said, pointing to a door to the stockroom. "An exclusive, just for special customers." His eyes gleamed, and Kate felt her heart tighten. She knew it wasn't about jewelry. It was a challenge, and she could refuse. But she didn't. So she followed him. Her legs moved as if on their own as she walked through the store to the narrow door at the back. Her phone vibrated again, and she imagined Max's message, "Where are you? It's been an hour." She felt guilt, but adrenaline was stronger. Artem opened the door, and they stepped into a small stockroom cluttered with boxes and hangers. The light was dim, and the air smelled of new fabric. Artem closed the door behind them, and Kate felt her pulse race. "Here," he said, pointing to a box with a supposed new collection. "But honestly, I just wanted to talk to you alone." His voice was low, and he stepped closer. Kate felt her back touch the wall. She could leave. She could say no and go back to Max. But she stayed. "Are you always like this with customers?" she asked, trying to steer the conversation back to a playful tone. But her voice trembled. Artem smiled. "Only with those who catch my eye," he replied, his hand lightly brushing her shoulder. Kate held her breath. She knew this was wrong. Max was in the car, trusting her, waiting. But here, in this cramped stockroom, she felt different. Desired. Alive. She didn't step back when Artem leaned closer. His face was so close she could feel the warmth of his skin. "You're special," he whispered, and his words were like a spark. Kate knew he probably said this to others. But at that moment, she didn't care. She let him kiss her. His lips were soft but insistent, and she kissed back, forgetting everything. The moment was brief but intense. Her hands found his shoulders, and she felt her self-control vanish. It was wrong, but euphoria drowned out the guilt. She heard her phone ringing in her bag, but the sound felt distant, unreal. Artem pulled back, smiling. "Maybe we'll meet again," he asked, his voice full of confidence. Kate felt reality return. She nodded, unsure what to say. Her thoughts were chaotic: euphoria, guilt, fear. She knew she'd done something she couldn't undo. But at that moment, she couldn't think about consequences. She wanted to stay in this moment a little longer before returning to the car, to Max, to real life. In the cramped stockroom, Kate stood, feeling her heart pound. Artem had just kissed her, and his words, "You're special," still echoed in her head. His hands were on her waist, and she hadn't pushed him away. This wasn't just flirting anymore. It was something more, and Kate knew she'd crossed a line. Her phone was ringing in her bag, and she was sure it was Max. He was waiting in the car, and every second spent here made her betrayal more real. It was a lie, and she hated herself for it. But what could she say? "I was kissing a consultant in the stockroom?" The thought made her nauseous. She quickened her pace, passing displays and customers. The store, which had seemed bright and inviting an hour ago, was now stifling. She felt sweat trickle down her back, her hands shaking. Kate stepped out into the parking lot, and the cool evening air hit her face. She saw Max's car, a gray sedan parked by a streetlight. He was inside, his silhouette still. She knew he was angry. She knew he deserved the truth. But how could she tell him? How could she explain something she couldn't even understand herself? She paused for a moment, trying to collect her thoughts. Her bag with the dress swung in her hand, and she felt something fall. It was the receipt, with Artem's phone number written on it. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't asked him to write it. He'd done it himself, and his confidence irritated her. But at the same time, she felt a strange warmth. He wanted her. He saw something in her that made him take the risk. Kate shook her head, trying to banish the thought. She couldn't think about Artem. Not now. She walked to the car and tapped on the window. Max looked up, his face grim. He opened the door but said nothing. Kate slid into the passenger seat, feeling the silence between them grow heavy. "Sorry," she said, trying to sound casual. "There was a line, and then I was looking at jewelry." Her voice trembled, and she knew he noticed. Max glanced at her, his eyes full of suspicion. "An hour?" he asked, his voice cold. Kate nodded, avoiding his gaze. She felt her lie crumbling but couldn't stop. She knew he didn't believe her. She knew he sensed something was off. But she couldn't confess. Not now. Not here. She clutched her bag, feeling the receipt with Artem's number burn in her mind. She had to destroy it, forget everything that had happened. But could she? Kate sat in the car, feeling the silence between her and Max become unbearable. Her bag with the dress lay on her lap, and she gripped it so tightly her knuckles whitened. Max stared ahead, his hands on the steering wheel. His face was grim, and Kate knew he didn't believe her excuses. "An hour in the store?" "Because of a line," he repeated, his voice sharp as a blade. Kate nodded, but her throat tightened. She couldn't meet his eyes. She knew her lie was weak. She'd lingered in the boutique too long, and her excuse about a line sounded unconvincing. Her cheeks burned, and she felt sweat trickle down her back. Her mind buzzed with memories, Artem, his kisses, the moment in the stockroom. She had betrayed Max, and the truth was like a weight on her heart. She wanted to confess, to ease her soul, but fear stopped her. What would he think? Would he forgive her? Max turned to her, his eyes filled with pain. "Kate, what's going on?" he asked, his voice trembling. She opened her mouth, but the words stuck. She couldn't tell the truth. She couldn't say she'd let another man kiss her, touch her. She imagined how his face would change, how he'd turn away from her forever. They'd been together for 3 years, and he'd always been her rock. And she'd ruined it all in 1 hour. She tried to change the subject, but her bag fell to the floor, and the receipt with Artem's number slipped out. Max leaned down to pick it up, and Kate felt her heart stop. He looked at the receipt, his brows furrowing. "What's this?" he asked, pointing to the handwritten phone number. Kate panicked. "It's just the consultant," she said, trying to sound calm. "He wrote it for discounts." But her voice shook, and she knew he didn't believe her. Max clenched the receipt in his hand. "Discounts," he repeated. "You were there for an hour, and now you have some guy's number?" His voice grew louder, and Kate felt panic rising. She wanted to snatch the receipt from his hands, say it meant nothing, but the truth was too close. She saw suspicion in his eyes, and it tore her apart. Kate decided to deny it. "It doesn't mean anything," she said, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "I was just looking at jewelry, and he wrote the number for promotions." Her words sounded hollow, and she knew he didn't believe her. Max shook his head and tucked the receipt into his pocket. "We'll talk at home," he said, and started the car. Kate sat, feeling her world collapse. She knew he wouldn't forget this. She knew the receipt was evidence she couldn't erase. Her lie was weak, and Max was too smart to believe it. She imagined him calling the number, talking to Artem, learning the truth. The thought made her sick. She clutched her bag, her hands trembling. The dress she'd wanted so badly now felt cursed. She had betrayed Max, and the truth was unbearable. She knew she had to decide how to move forward, confess or keep lying. But whatever she chose, there was no going back. Kate sat in the car, feeling the silence between her and Max become unbearable. His hands gripped the steering wheel, his gaze fixed on the road. He hadn't said a word since tucking the receipt with Artem's number into his pocket. Kate knew he didn't believe her excuses. She knew he sensed something was wrong. Her chest tightened with guilt, but at the same time, anger was rising, anger at herself, at Artem, at the situation she'd gotten herself into. She was no longer the carefree girl who had walked into the boutique an hour ago. Back then, she thought flirting was just a game, that she could play and return to Max as if nothing had happened. But now she felt how her actions had changed her. She had betrayed the person who loved her, and the truth was like poison, slowly eating away at her. But instead of drowning in shame, Kate felt something new awaken in her. She didn't want to be a victim of her mistakes. She wanted to take control. She glanced at Max. His face was tense, and she knew he was grappling with his thoughts. He deserved the truth, but Kate wasn't ready to give it. Not now. Not in the car, where every word could be the last. She knew that if she confessed, she'd lose him. But if she kept lying, she'd lose herself. The thought was like a cold shower, and it forced Kate to pull herself together. She started thinking strategically. If Max learned the truth, she had to be prepared. She thought about the receipt in his pocket. He might call Artem, and then what? Artem, she thought, was too cocky to lie. He wouldn't hide their flirtation. She had to act first. She could destroy the receipt, but that would only confirm her guilt. She could confess partially, admit to flirting but leave out the stockroom. It was risky, but better than the full truth. Kate gripped her bag, feeling her hands stop trembling. She was no longer the scared girl panicking over her actions. She was a woman who had made a mistake and now had to deal with it. She imagined talking to Max, choosing her words, defending herself. She didn't want hysterics or tears. She wanted to be strong, even if it meant losing him. She knew she had to reclaim her dignity. She had let Artem seduce her, but that didn't define her. She was more than this mistake. She remembered how Max always called her strong, how he said she could handle anything. And he was right. She would handle this. Even if it meant facing the truth, his anger, or loss. Kate took a deep breath, feeling her thoughts grow clearer. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew she wouldn't let this situation destroy her. She looked at the road, at the city lights passing by the window. She was ready for whatever lay ahead, no matter the consequences. Max stopped the car outside their apartment but didn't turn off the engine. He turned to Kate, his eyes filled with pain. "Kate, what happened in the store?" he asked, his voice quiet but firm. Kate felt her heart tighten. She knew the moment had come. She could keep lying, but that would only make things worse. She could confess everything, but that would destroy their relationship. She chose a middle path. "I flirted with the consultant," she said, forcing herself to meet his eyes. He was attentive, and I played along. It was wrong, and I'm sorry. Her voice was steady, though her chest burned. She didn't mention the stockroom, didn't mention the kisses. It was a half-truth, but she hoped it was enough to calm him. Max was silent, his face unreadable. Then he pulled the receipt from his pocket and placed it on the dashboard. "This is for discounts, right?" he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Kate nodded, but her throat tightened. She knew he didn't believe her. He shook his head and got out of the car. "I need time," he said, closing the door. Kate stayed in the car, feeling her world collapse. She knew she'd lost his trust. She knew he could learn the truth if he wanted to. But she didn't cry. She didn't let herself fall apart. Instead, she took out her phone and opened a message from Artem. He'd texted her while she was in the car. "Hope we'll see each other again," it read. Kate pressed her lips together. She didn't want to see him. She didn't want him to be part of her life. She typed, "Don't text me again," and blocked his number. It wasn't revenge in the classic sense, but it was her decision. She wouldn't let Artem keep her on a hook. She wouldn't be his trophy. She had made a mistake, but she wouldn't let it define her future. Kate got out of the car, holding the bag with the dress. She looked at it and felt nauseous. The dress was a symbol of her betrayal, and she couldn't wear it. She threw the bag into the dumpster by the building, feeling the weight on her shoulders lighten. She knew Max might leave. She knew their relationship might not survive this. But she also knew she was stronger than she thought. She walked into the apartment, feeling her thoughts grow clearer. She had made a mistake, but she wouldn't let it destroy her. She would take back control, even if it meant starting over. She looked at herself in the mirror and, for the first time that evening, smiled. It wasn't a joyful smile, but it was real. She was ready for whatever lay ahead, no matter the consequences.